Good day, everyone. Welcome to the Technologist Forum, where I bring news, updates, and discussions on the latest trends in consumer and enterprise technology. Today, we're going to talk about the art and the science of content creation, what it means to be a creator, the importance of managing expectations, your own expectations, and your community's expectations, and what it's like going through that essential journey of being a digital content creator. Y'all ready? Let's get into it. Man, I can't do it alone. I can't do it alone. So, ladies and gentlemen, check him out. Lloyd, not George. Isn't
James, thanks for having me, man. I
yes,
appreciate it. I'm super excited. Every time we talk, I go
sir.
back, I tell my wife, I'm like, man, James got a crazy YouTube setup. I don't have, I need what he has. So every single week, slowly it's building up, and eventually I'll convince her.
Okay, well, you got to give permission, right? You got
Right.
to do some of them honeydews and get the yes dears in to make sure that you can
Exactly.
get that Best Buy budget going. We can talk about that
Exactly.
offline too, right? I don't want to get you in trouble or nothing, but
Yeah.
I tell you what, man. Let's back up just a second. And again, my audience, my community is primarily solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, and folks that are looking to endeavor and engage in digital content creation. Tell them who you are, right? Again, let's talk about that 35,000 foot level of who Lloyd George is, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So currently, I'm a content creator that helps brands create educational content for their business. I started creating content in 2018, primarily on TikTok and podcasting, and I just fell in love with it. Like literally, the moment I published that first video, and I was like, "Oh my gosh." That feels like amazing. I felt empowered, and I felt like it was the first time I felt like I had the opportunity to share my thoughts, my opinions, publicly with the world and have them react. And so I started doing that in 2018. And as I started doing that, brands and businesses would reach out and say, like, hey, like, that's cool. Can you do that for us? We'll pay you X amount. And then I started falling in love with that, helping other people come up with like creative ways to communicate. And so currently I work with Spotify. I've done some content for LinkedIn, Riverside, a few brands within the creator space. And that's what I do today.
Love it, man. So you've been around the block a couple of times, right? So, which is good, right? Because again, I think one of the interesting things and folks who are just starting up or wanting to start up is they think that this is more of a sprint as opposed to a marathon. So talk a little bit about that piece right there. And I guess, the expectation for someone who, again, who has a message, who wants to start building community, understand that they can leverage technology. We've all got these phones in our hands that have cameras that can take 4K 60 resolution videos on. So we have the gear. But talk to us a little bit about, again, since you've been in it so long, getting brand deals, working with folks like LinkedIn, like you said there. What's that marathon? What's that journey like for someone who wants to start doing that today?
Yeah, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head using a word that I love, which is that this is a marathon. And hopefully, people are passionate about the content that they're
Mm,
creating. And I know that this may not be everyone, and creators may not feel like this all the time. But hopefully, as creators, we're saying, man, I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life, that this is a lifestyle. This is not just some sort of like short term hustle, even though it can be. Hopefully we're saying, man, I love waking up, coming up with creating ideas, recording them and publishing them, whether that might be TikTok right now, in the future it might be a different platform. I'm going to probably be doing this for the rest of my life. And so that takes away a lot of pressure to feel like I have to be successful, or I have to work with Spotify in the next 3 years. You might say, hey, I'm giving myself 10 years to figure out what I'm doing, figure out what I like, figure out how I can even do this sustainably, balancing, managing. I'm married, so like managing time with my wife, managing
Come
time
on.
with my friends, and creating content, right? It's like you don't have to figure all of that now. You might give yourself 10 years to know that like this is a marathon. So I love that you said that.
Yeah, I wonder if, and I'm not just going to be stereotypical and say the youth, or just I'll say new folks coming into digital content creation are being misfed when they think that there is some overnight successes, right? You think about the beast. You think about folks that are just blowing up right now online, but realizing that they've been in this game for a long time and had a little bit of success, had a few pops, had a lot of plateaus, and had a lot of downfalls as well. But I enjoy the learning part. To
Yeah.
be honest with you, right? I enjoy when something doesn't go right, when something breaks, when the lights don't turn on, when the camera stops recording. Right? I enjoy that piece because then I can tell the next cat coming up and say, "Listen, get that runner show first. Do that tech check. Do these things." So you limit kind of that frustration because again, this is so much of a long haul. This is so much of a journey. This is so much of a marathon that it
Yeah.
allows you, Lloyd, to keep thinking about being creative instead of, oh man, is my mic plugged in? Is my roadcaster right? All those things around the creativity that really don't matter, right?
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm so glad you said that. And like, I
Yeah.
want to ask you about that because it's like, I think you've done a great job identifying what part you love about the process, right? So it's like you just mentioned, you love the technology, you
Mhm.
love fixing things when they get broke, or even maybe taking different technologies and seeing how they work together. At what point did you realize, like, I love this aspect of it? Because you do so much beyond that, right? And same with you, same with me. It's like, I love when I put like a video out and people are like, yo, that video resonated with me and they're responding to the comments. But it's so much more than that, right? Like I still have to like come up with the concepts, write this script. Same with you. You still got to like edit it.
Yeah.
So at what point did you realize like, man, I love this aspect of it. I still got to do all this stuff, but this is my thing that feeds me.
Because that's the part that a lot of folks don't pay attention to, right? Because that's the hard part. The easy part is, again, if you have a message, if you have an audience, if you have a community and you want to talk to them about X, that's the easy part. I can turn the lights on and press record and we can talk about whatever for hours. But it's all the nuance. It's
Yeah,
all the intricate pieces, right? The stuff that makes the look, the stuff that makes the sound, right? The stuff that does all of that. That's what that getting 1% better each particular time that I can help the next person understand that this is how you can level up to kind of rise above that noise. There's a lot of entertainment out there. There's a lot of creators out there, but man, if you sound the same, look the same, and talk the same, you're gonna get lost in the shuffle in the crowd. So I like being someone that helps the next person again rise above the noise, be their own unique self, and understand all the bits and pieces around it while still, I mean, it's a whole lot of stuff to do, but while still being passionate and being locked in and being focused on the content and the message that they're trying to put out to their community. Man,
that's so good.
you didn't turn the whole interview
I'm
around.
interviewing
Let me
you.
let me
I
turn
know.
my let me get
That's a
rid of
good
my
point
running
though.
show now. You didn't turn the whole thing around on me.
Because, like, I feel like a lot of people don't realize what we do takes a lot of intentionality. Like, it's
Yes.
so many
Oh,
small, minor things that I think go into, like, our content looking or sounding the way it does, and at the root of it, I think we just wanna serve our listeners and watchers well, but to your point, it takes a lot of dedication.
it does. It does. I mean, and you said a couple of things already. The intentionality piece. I mean, the fact that at the end of the day, it's not necessarily about that, but again, it's about the message and then connecting with communities. Let me ask you what connecting with communities and why and how you kind of resonated and maintained and found yourself in the podcast world, in the audio podcast world, or do you see yourself diving more into video? I call them infocasts. No one uses the word. I should trademark it, but I call them infocasts. And do you see yourself delving more into video, long form video? I know you're doing a lot of you were doing a lot of TikToks as well, but and I know you're huge in terms of the audio podcast. Why did you, I guess, start there and kind of put your foundation on the audio side?
Yeah, I think there is nothing in this world like audio podcasting. Like it's just a different beast. Like the people, like if you compare audio podcasting as an industry to any other industry, I don't think any other industry compares. People are just so supportive. People are just like caring. If you pull up to like a podcast conference, like it's just like the energy is just different. And so it's like one of the things that is like a big thing in like audio podcasting that maybe isn't in other spaces is we have what we call like podcast swaps, which is basically where I would take your podcast, James, and I would promote it with my audience, and you would do the same for me. That would never happen in any other space. Like you would never take a competitor's YouTube channel and ask to promote them. But in audio podcasting, that's a thing. And so I think that like that's just like one way where I think that
Yeah.
like, audio podcasting stands out. In addition to that, I also just think that like about serving, when you think about serving your audience and
Hmm.
really legit putting like hours down and saying, how can I come up with the best product? audio podcasters spend hours per episode, just like perfecting it, you know?
Yeah.
If you listen to How I Built This with Guy Raz, like, you could tell that's like they spend hours producing that show, and so I think there's a lot of opportunity to serve your audience.
So we'll talk about that too. But you remember a couple of weeks ago, I hit you on just a clip that you did, and I noticed the nuance in what you did, right? How you lined up the scene, right? You were again very intentional, very purposeful in terms of the look and feel of what you did. And 80% of folks probably wouldn't have caught on to that. But I
Yeah.
hit you up and I said, bruh, what you did was nice. And folks, I will put links to all of Lloyd's stuff in the description after this session. But so I've got your Apple Audio podcast on the screen right now. Are you multi distributing your podcast? So you mentioned you were doing some stuff with Spotify. So obviously you got it on Spotify. You're on Apple. Are you on Google? Are you on all the platforms? I should say for audio side.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a great question. I'm glad you brought this up because it's something I want to highlight.
Hmm.
And you probably already know this, but your listeners may not. In the world of podcasting, we use what's known as like RSS feeds, which basically means you can like upload something to one place and it's auto distributed everywhere. That's not something I've seen in video quite a bit, but I think it could be applicable because a lot of people upload the same TikTok video to Instagram. Instagram Reels and the same video to like YouTube Shorts. So if video had a RSS, you would upload one video to the same place and it would distribute it on all platforms. So because of that, my podcast is able to live on Apple, iHeart, Pandora, Pocket Casts. It's over like 50 different apps. So
Okay.
wherever people listen to their podcast, they can catch my podcast. I will say to your point earlier that like podcasting is changing, so it's a very audio first medium, but now it's becoming more video friendly. We also now are starting to have thumbnails in the world of podcasting. So if you're listening to a podcast on Apple on like your cell phone, you now can upload a thumbnail for each individual
Yeah.
podcast. This is something Spotify has already had. So I do think podcasting is becoming more like YouTube, for better or for worse.
Right. The worlds are colliding. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Apple seems to lead the world in a lot, and big announcement yesterday. I'm gonna ask you if you're gonna. I ask you a little bit later if you're gonna buy one of them MacBooks or not, because I'm looking for a couple of dollars to maybe buy me one. Um, you mentioned Spotify, and again, so let's get into the video side. Have you leveraged the video aspect of the video podcast on Spotify? Because they're the only ones right now that seem to have actually grabbed hold to that different dynamic of sharing content. Are you doing video on Spotify as well?
You're so right. I'm not currently doing video, primarily because when Spotify released this feature, it was only available to people hosting their podcast on Spotify.
Right. Right.
However, I will say because of this, I've switched my host to Spotify so I can start doing this. I was on
It's a good move.
Spotify's parent company host, which is Megaphone,
Yeah.
and I was paying a lot more to be on Megaphone, but I'm actually downgrading just so I can leverage like the video capability. So to your point, I think in general the only reason podcasters are using video is because more people could see their content. I think if it wasn't for that, podcasters would love to just keep doing audio.
Hmm. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, could you see yourself ever? Do you consider the content that you put out like this form? I think could be a podcast. Like we're literally doing an interview. It's
Right.
being recorded and distributed. I know some people may call it a live stream, but theoretically, this could be a podcast. I mean, do you think about it in those terms or
This
no?
this will be a podcast. Actually, you are my kindling or my fire, whatever, my lightning strike to revamp and circulate my podcast because I'm out there. Also
Yeah,
hosted, started with Anchor. I had all of them. Right. I'm not going. I could drop all the names, the
yeah.
Spreakers, the Acast, the been all over the place, but then came back to Spotify because of the video piece, because I'm a kind of a
Yep.
video first creator, and multi distribute across all of the platforms, the Apples, the Googles, the Pandoras, the Amazons, and all of that for the audio piece. But this is actually going to be the first one in about 6 months that actually goes back on just the audio
Mhm.
piece. So
Yeah.
You the man. You the man is getting me back into that world. So,
Yeah, the last
um,
thing I just wanna say to your point is, like, I used to hear a lot of people say this, and I wasn't sure I necessarily believed it, but I think like, audio-only podcasting is a very intimate medium, and I think
mm,
if you're watching someone, that's still kinda intimate because it's just you and them, but I think having somebody, like, in your ears and just walking around, it's just you pay so much more attention to what they're saying, the background noise, the sounds, and so I think it's a better opportunity to connect in a more in-depth level with your listener.
I love that. I love it. And so let me ask, where do you see the most growth in terms of your journey and your content being put out? Is it short form? Our youth today have an attention span of all of 30, 60 seconds. So you got to catch them with that. Or is it the 15, 20, 30 minute, 60-minute type of session that you have where you have a one-on-one conversation? Where are you seeing the majority of your content that has had higher engagement on your platforms?
Yeah, that's such a great question, and I think it's actually a little more nuanced than I'd like it to be.
Mm,
Part of the reason is because, like, when I first started creating content, I used to think that, like, hey, you create content and you get more followers. When you get more followers, you can make more money. What I now know is you could just start making more money now, right?
come on
So if
now.
I'm thinking about it that way, then it's like I technically don't need to be on Instagram or TikTok. I should just be on LinkedIn. Like if you just connect with one person that could pay you on LinkedIn each day, that's 300 people a year, right? So it's like if I'm just being like practical and trying to find the like most practical way to make money, that is it. And so that's what I've been spending a lot more of like my time is just like LinkedIn, making one post a day. There's times where like I won't post on Instagram for like several weeks, but because people and brands are still seeing my content on LinkedIn, that will like bring me top of mind and they'll reach out for opportunities. So it's by far being like LinkedIn. But what about you? I know you're on LinkedIn too. How are you thinking about platforms? Are you on YouTube, TikTok? How are you? And I know YouTube's like your main platform too.
Yeah,
So
YouTube is probably still number one. I am looking. So breaking news here. Okay, I'm looking at also also doing a kind of Netflix style pay per view type of video platform
mm,
for more member type. Yeah, member and paid video pieces as well. So I'll probably be using something like Uscreen.tv for that. Shouts out to Rob Balasabas, who I think you know
yeah.
the name as well, who's a good friend of ours. So I'll probably be moving
Shout
towards
out
that.
Rob.
Yeah, come on now. So he's good people. But yeah, LinkedIn is the truth, right?
Yeah, for
LinkedIn
sure.
is the truth.
Do you
But
think that do you think the 2 can work together? Like, I know for me, it's like there was a time where I was posting my TikToks on LinkedIn and they were doing pretty well, but do you think that there could be some collaboration between YouTube and LinkedIn?
I think there can be some collaboration. But I think where I was going to go is that not every piece of content needs to be on each platform.
Mm,
Everything that I put on Instagram or TikTok or in a IG reel
yep,
necessarily needs to go on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is where you start getting into the dollars and cents,
yep,
right? And LinkedIn, every time you put something out there, by default, people get notified. So I
yep,
don't I don't want to be waking up people. I don't want to be notifying and pinging people for just madness. I'm not
yep,
publishing madness anyway, or just but you know what? Every time I hit you, it's got to be intentional, especially when it goes out on LinkedIn. So if I put a post out there, if I put a piece of content out there, I want to make sure that it resonates, that it causes some type of emotion, is it got a call to action, all those things, right? And
yeah,
that it matters and it resonates. The
yeah,
entertainment side, well, that can be on the TikToks of the
yeah.
world, that can be on the Instagram reels of the world, and all that. So I do kind of delineate different types of content that goes on different platforms.
Yeah, that's a great point. When you phrase it that way, it's almost like we have 2 separate audiences. It's like we have
Yeah,
the people we're entertaining and then the people that hire us.
yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, to your point, I think we spend a lot more time trying to like impress the people we entertain and less not enough time with the people that like hire
You
us.
over here
But
having therapy sessions, boy. Listen, but that's truth, right? Always trying to. I put a post out late last night on LinkedIn, just LinkedIn and
mm,
Twitter, said almost essentially that. Don't worry about keeping up with the Joneses.
right.
Stay locked in on your purpose or your goal. It said something like that, right? Don't get into that. Rise above
Yeah.
the noise. Don't try to be someone else. Don't try to keep up with whomever else is doing something. Just do you,
Right.
and you're gonna be all right. And more, you may not get the folks commenting, you may not get the engagement, but somebody's watching.
Right.
And that right
Exactly.
person is watching, and they may not always be in the chat saying, hey, Lloyd, what's going
Yeah.
on? I'm here checking you out, checking in from California. But you know what? When it comes down to writing the PO, writing the check,
Facts.
getting the deal, that's when they reach out. So I
That's
mean,
who you need.
yeah, that's who you only need. Like you said, you only need a couple of them.
Yeah. I don't
You
know if
just
you've
need a
ever heard
tribe.
Paul Brunson's story.
Mm,
He's like a TV personality, but a black Jamaican. But he had a YouTube channel. It was like a
yeah.
dating show on YouTube where he'd give dating advice or something like that. And each time he would post on YouTube, he'd only get like 10 or 11 views. And he thought like 7 or 8 of those were his mom. But then one day he gets an email and it's Oprah and she wants him to host one of her TV shows.
Come
And it
on now.
turns out she was one of the 11. So you never know, man.
Right. Let Oprah call me. Listen, I'm bringing you with me. Right.
Right, right. We spoke it
Let,
into existence.
yes, sir. You know, let Oprah listen. I wish Oprah would call me. We gonna
Right.
act a fool, man. See, but
Right.
there you go. You never know. That's why you keep doing. That's why you show up. That's why you
Yeah.
keep doing it. And each time you turn the lights on, press record, you bring the energy, you bring the passion, you bring your true self, as opposed to just, oh, there's only 2 or 3 people that are watching live. Remember, there's a replay squad as well. There's people watching it on replay,
Right.
and even those the analytics. You know, so let me ask you that, right? Again, as soon as you post an audio podcast, and I know you're probably watching analytics as well, and you see it maybe start at one point, then gradually goes up. Talk to me again about how do you maybe coach someone who's new to the game, new to the industry of, not getting in their own way and being caught up too much in the numbers, but being cognizant of the numbers.
Yeah, that's such a great question. And part of what I love about where I'm at, and that's part of what I've been trying to do lately, is just like enjoy where you're at. And it's like
Mm,
as creators, it's like we're so focused on like the future that we never say like, man, I have 1,000 followers right now and it feels great. Like it's amazing. Like I don't got a lot of pressure. If I'm tired, I don't have to create. Like this is great.
yeah,
And so like because I'm a small creator, when you look at analytics, I think a lot of people look at their analytics a bit differently than I would recommend. I like to pay attention to what I call like soft analytics, right? So for me, how many people are actually listening to the episode doesn't really matter. That doesn't change anything for me. What does matter though is like how long did they listen? Like at what point did they like stop listening? Like why did they stop listening at that point? How can we use this information to make the episode better? And so I think that's the stage I'm at right now. It's like a lot of the data that I pay attention to is more so to like improve my content, not to gauge how good or bad the content is because not that many people watched it or because a lot of people watched it.
that's a good point, man. That's a good point. Again, being critical of yourself, right? So
Right.
listening and watching and understanding that you think you sound amazing, but again, but when you put the headphones on and you listen to it post, you're like, man, I could have tightened that up a little bit, or I could have shortened that intro, because not everyone, the intros aren't really the thing, right? But make sure the hook is right. But right, you work on the craft and pull out the red teacher pen and be critical, but be
Yeah.
constructive at the same time.
1000%. Like that's
Right.
such a great way to think about it. And especially in like podcasting or YouTube or long form content, I kind of now understand in my brain where like the markers are. So like in the world of podcasting, someone has to listen for, I think it's 60 seconds in order for it to count as a download. I think on YouTube it's
Hmm.
30 seconds. So I know that, okay, like first 60 seconds, that's marker number one. And then I know on my podcast, people might drop off around like the 6 minute mark. So I know like at that point, they know what the podcast is about. We've kind of started and now they're like, nah, this isn't for me. So like, how could we make that better? Right. So I kind of know, like, I've been doing it long enough to know that like, okay, like these are the areas I can like get better. It's now going to take me a year to get better. Let's like work on it. Let's go through it. It doesn't necessarily matter if it's 100 people listening or 2,000. It's kind of the
Yeah,
same thing that we're working on.
I love that. So you probably are aware and understand that behind the scenes, I'm back here pushing buttons, turning dials every time.
Right. Exactly.
I'm back here just tearing the stream deck up, brother. I'm over here
Yeah.
doing all kind of things, and it's going to be some micro content going out in about 30 minutes after we get offline to make sure
Right.
this hits.
Yeah. I mean, I tell me if you feel this way. I kind of struggle with this. It's like if I record a piece of content and I'm excited about it, like I'm like, man, that was a great episode. I feel like I'm more inclined and more motivated to release it sooner rather than later just because I'm excited about it. But then if I'm not excited about it, I kind of just like procrastinate. I'm kind of lackadaisical with it. How do you handle like when you edit and when you post stuff after you record?
Again, this will go out 30 minutes after you. There's your answer right there, right?
Right,
Again,
exactly.
and I feel the exact same way. I don't look for, I know there's metrics and analytics out there for quote unquote best time to post, but
Mhm.
we are global, right?
Yep.
You've got listeners and viewers all across the planet. So have I. So if I post something at 6 a.m. my time, that's not a
Mhm.
great time to catch content for someone who's on the other side of the world. So I don't necessarily pay attention to that piece, but I do
Mhm.
pay attention to doing the edits right, doing the look and feel right, making sure that titles and descriptors, so all of the infrastructure pieces are in
Yeah.
place. So
Yep.
again, with that 30, 60-second attention span that we have out there, that I grab you with at least
Yep.
the title and with at least that bit of information. So yeah, this right here, man, don't trip. This gonna go out tonight. This this will go
Yeah.
out tonight. So
No, I love that. I love that. That's amazing. I feel like your content though, to me, feels very like you do a really good job with your editing. Your post-production flow is really, really good. I think for me, there's times where it's like I want it to be that good, but I'm just like, man, I'm tired. Like I'm literally too tired for this. Do you ever feel that way? Or if you feel that way, you're just like, nah, then I'm not putting it out today. I'll edit it when I'm ready.
I appreciate that, and I'll take those flowers. But again, it's again the part that drives and motivates me as well by doing. I've got a certain look and feel in terms of how
Mhm.
everything should go and be.
Yeah.
Everything within the studio is in a place, and it's in a specific place. You see
Yeah.
the LUT that's on the camera right now, right? You see the cinematic view. So, I mean, everything has its place,
Yep.
and even intro, outro, mid roll, B roll, all of that stuff for the micro content is specific to that session. That's the part
Yep.
that I love doing.
Yeah.
That's the second most exciting part, next to having the actual conversation with someone
Mhm.
like you. Right? That's the second most important thing to me. So doing that, I never necessarily get tired of it. Sometimes I go down the rabbit hole. I'll
Mhm.
admit, right? I'll go down and try to tweak something too much, but that's really where then I'll say stop, pause, walk away from it. Because again, if you try to be too technical, if you try to
Yeah.
be too specific and take out all of the ums and all of the ahs and all of the right, take away all of the emotion out of it and all the personality, your audience reads to that too, right?
Yeah. That's a
So
great point.
so yeah, I'll do what I need to do, and I'll take on a typical 60-minute session. It'll take me about 20 minutes to
Mm.
edit down, right?
That's really good. That's pretty
To get
good.
it right. It takes me about, because again, I got kind of my processes in place, my best
Yeah.
practices. I know what it needs to look like from the beginning, in the middle, and the end. So yeah, about 20 minutes to cut up a good piece.
Okay. Yeah, that's good timing.
No, but who knows? It depends on how much scotch I had that night too. Wait a minute.
Right,
Okay, hold
exactly.
on. I shouldn't be. I
Gotcha,
shouldn't be.
and today birthday cake,
You
so
know what I'm saying? Yeah, tonight there's gonna be a little bit of scotch. Um, the world is open back up, man. So,
yeah.
which is a good thing. You're getting back out there into some of these conferences. I'm trying to get back out there as well. I got certain things coming up near the end of the year and the beginning of the year. But I know you just got back from, what was it, Creator IQ
Yeah.
Cloud or something of that nature. Talk to us a little bit about what that is or what that
Yeah,
was.
absolutely. So Creator IQ is a conference for influencer marketers. It was here in LA, and I think maybe about like 1,000 people attended. And part of why I was excited to go is these are basically all of the influencer marketers and influencer managers. Their entire job is just to hire creators. So my thought was like, man, if I'm in the room, this is like you can't be in a better situation than this. And so I attended, and it was life changing. I learned a lot. I think the biggest thing I learned was it was interesting seeing influencer managers on stage saying what they look for in a creator and what makes their job a little easier. And so I learned a lot about how to collaborate with some of the brands that I want to work with.
Okay. Okay. Make some good connections. You know,
Amazing
got
connections.
some folks. Okay, there you go.
Conferences to me are the best way, I think, to like meet people that could potentially
Truth.
pay you because there's no middleman. It's no like email. They
You
get to
right
meet
there, right?
you.
Right, you
Yeah,
sitting there right there breaking bread with them. Hey, come on, right? Let's just go to the side. Let's exchange numbers and let me show you what
yeah,
I do. Tell me what you do. That's why I'm just so glad that the world is open back up.
exactly. Yeah, and you can literally message someone, "Hey, it was a great meeting you. Can you do coffee tomorrow? Let's lock it in right now." Right. So it's like I like that forwardness and that directness. And a lot of times the person you meet is the exact person you need to be talking to versus maybe if it's an email, it's like, oh, it's this actually this other person. Let me connect you. And it takes too long.
Cool, cool. Now you out here doing your thing, conferences, creating content. Again, I'm a technology guy. Been in the enterprise IT for 4 decades. Yeah, I just dated
Mm.
myself. Don't mess with me. What's your go to? Let me ask you, what's your go to piece of technology? Let me ask you that, and then what platforms do you utilize? Are you part of the cult of Mac, or are you PC guy? What you got going on, man? What's in your toolkit?
Yeah, so I'm a Team Mac all day. Like I've
Say
been
that one
using
more
Mac,
time. Say that again for the
see, and I
people in the back of the room. No.
Team Mac since I was a kiddo, like since I was in high school or something. And so I've never stopped using Mac. I love Mac. And so even for like recording content, I only use my iPhone. I just sold all of my cameras just because it's like I love the simplicity of just pulling out my cell phone and let's
Dude,
go.
oh, so hold on right there. I sorry to interrupt. So the biggest flex yesterday during the Apple keynote about MacBooks, it wasn't a whole present. It wasn't nothing that Tim was saying. It wasn't the space black. It wasn't
Yeah.
nothing else. You know what it was? It was that last credit at the
Yep.
very end saying this whole thing was shot on iPhones and
That's
edited on Mac.
crazy. I
That
didn't
whole
even know
thing.
that.
Yeah, that was a flex right there. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but again, just to your point, right? Who
Yep.
needs this? That I'm not gonna say how much my camera costs, but who needs this multi-thousand? I don't want anybody coming to the house. Who needs this
Right.
multi-$1,000 camera hooked up when you've got device already in your back pocket that's
Yeah.
got 4K 30, 4K 60, 4K 120, whatever the case may be, and you can use just that
Right.
and be very mobile. So I'm sorry,
Yeah.
man. Go ahead.
Nice.
Yeah.
And to your point, like that, I mean, iPhone for me works perfectly. I think the rut I get into, and my wife hates this, I get into this thought cycle where I'm just like, man, if I just had this piece of equipment, I could probably create so much more content, so much more faster. Then maybe I'll even make more money because more brands will see it.
Yeah.
And it never works out like that. So iPhone to record, and then on editing, I try and simplify it. So I actually use CapCut for my vertical content, and then I use DaVinci Resolve for my landscape content. But those are about. I use Opus for clips. I use the captions app for captions sometimes, but outside of that, that's about it.
That right there again is very telling though, because your toolkit is all of 5 or 6 pieces of software
Yep.
that when there's a plethora of other gear and other equipment and other platforms out there that do similar but different,
Yep.
that either have different subscription models, that have whatever the case may be, but being very locked in, very focused on, I'm gonna do DaVinci Resolve free,
Yep.
great price.
Yep.
CapCut, for the most part, 80% could be free, but if you want to get extra
Yep.
fancy, then you pay the, it's what, $7.99 a month, right? For the
Yeah.
pro to do all the other stuff. So again, pricing is really good. I guess what I'm
Yeah.
getting to, pricing is, it's a price versus cost conversation, because you don't necessarily
Yeah.
have to break the bank to actually get out there and create high quality content by
Yep.
utilizing these platforms and this technology that's out
Exactly.
there. Man.
Exactly. That's a great point. And I think to your point, it's like I think there was a time where I was afraid to create content, and I spent more time thinking about like, man, what if I do? Let me just work on learning this software, and once I
Yeah.
learn that, then I can create. And it's like the biggest thing I think that's helped me is just like every day, wake up, create something, simplify it as much as humanly possible. Even if you don't put it out, just build that habit of like saying like what's the idea for today? How are we capturing it? What am I putting it out? And it could even be written content, but it's like if you have a simple like editing workflow, that makes it that much more easier.
This man said, "Wake up every day, and make something." Now, come on now, and
every
that's
day.
right there. I'm gonna put that on my next T-shirt. You see, I'm rocking gear. I'm rocking merchandise.
Yeah,
I may
I
put
love
that
the merch. I love the merch.
right. I may put that on the
I,
next one.
I
Um,
like that.
if there was something that you could leave with, again, I'm gonna lump folks together. I'm gonna say new creators, and I'm gonna say some not necessarily long tail, but some more experienced creators as well who have been in the game for about a year or so. What are some best practices that you can leave folks with to continue to build, evolve, create, and those kind of things? Just and you can pick from any bucket. You can pick dealing with brands, dealing with technology, whatever the case may be. Just some best practices that you would give to a creator out there who's looking at, again, doing more than just side hustle, but actually being more business minded and being business focused with their content creation.
Yeah, that's such a great question. I like to think about it as like I like to think of myself as like an asset, right? Think of yourself as like a company, right? And so you have to think about the fact that like, hey, I'm going to be creating content, let's just say for the next 20 years, and I currently make money creating content. So I need to protect my ability to create content at all costs, right? One of the ways I do that, right, is I need to be cognizant that like, man, I'm getting tired, I'm getting burnt out, I need to take a break, right? Just like healthy habits, like healthy hygiene, right? And so I think that like for me, I used to feel like, man, I just need to go hard. I need to create 6 videos a day. And I would pretend like I need to make it in 1 year. But now that I've given myself permission to say, hey, you've got 20 years to make like this content thing work. Like what does that change? And for me, it just so happens that I take more breaks. I make sure that I'm feeling mentally good. I make sure that I'm even like leaving more creative bandwidth in my brain just to think of like creative ideas. Like when people hire me, I want them to feel like, dang, like this guy's really good. He always has like fresh ideas. And so it's like small things like that, that if you really believe like, yo, I have 20 years to really make something happen, I think a lot of the small things we do on a daily basis would change a little bit.
Yeah, it is, man. Respect the process. I always got to put like a sports analogy in there. So
Right.
there you
Exactly.
go, right there. You got to respect the process.
Yeah.
Lloyd, where can folks find you, man? Again, I'm gonna put links to, let's see, your IG, your LinkedIn, your TikTok, and your podcasts as well. But where can folks find you? You get like a central hub where you want to draw people to, particularly.
Yeah, absolutely. People can find me at lloydnotgeorge.com. When my first name's Lloyd and my last name is George. And so when people see it, they just assume George is my first name. So they're just always like, oh, what's up, George? So I was like, oh, let's just make it simple for people. It's just Lloyd, not George. And so if you go to lloydnotgeorge.com, you can find me there. I'm also Lloyd, not George on all social platforms.
Love it, man. But listen, man, I appreciate you. Right, I've been
Thank you
wanting to
so much for
have.
having me.
Listen, I've been wanting to have this conversation for a minute, and you jet setting, right? So every time I check your Instagram, you in a different city, you on different stage, you got different folks in the studio. I'm like, man, let me get this man on camera,
Right.
right?
Nah, we next time we got to do it in person. I appreciate you having me. I love like your dedication to like high quality content. That's like I think the one thing we share in common. And if you're somebody that appreciates high quality content, you can always see it in other people. So I definitely respect how much effort you put into this work.
I appreciate you, brother. That right there is what one of the reasons why we do what we do at the scale and at the level of detail that we do it. So that's that feel that I needed, man. I appreciate you. Be safe out there tonight. Thank you again, and let's make sure to connect sometime soon. All right.
Sounds good. Thanks, James.
Later, brother.
Peace.